Good evening. I will call to order the Finance Committee meeting on April 19th, 2023 at 7 p.m. We have two items on the agenda this evening. Transfer request for the FY 2024 MEDC operating budget. Also a transfer request to fund the FY 2024 WMCT-TV operating budget with the capital items. I will begin by reading the letter submitted by the Mayor. Honorable President Ossing and councilors, enclosed, please find two transfer requests from Economic Development to Marlborough Economic Development Corporation, MEDC, in the amount of $648,290 to fund the operating budget and special projects, as well as $100,000 to fund the Economic Development Toolbox to support small businesses. Marlborough maintains the lowest commercial vacancy rate in the area, while the MEDC continues to bring on average annually 20 new or expanded businesses, increasing job growth while supporting small businesses. New employees potentially become new customers in our community. The Economic Development Toolbox will continue to help small businesses with beautification, amenities, rental assistance, and property tax reimbursements. Also enclosed is an FY 2024 operating budget for your review. Sincerely, Arthur G. Vigent, Mayor. And I will begin with bringing Director Harris up, please. I'll open it up to the Finance Committee for any questions, and rest of the council. Good evening, Meredith. Good evening, Linda.
Good evening. Thanks for having us tonight. I also have with me Linda Martins, Director of Operations.
Thank you. So I will start with, it's good to see things moving forward again, getting some positive feedback. Also replenishing the toolbox.
Correct.
If you could just hit on that for 1 second as well. That helps some downtown businesses as well, getting started. Would that also include if they were interested in doing any outdoor seatings and things of that nature?
Sure. First of all, just thanks for having us tonight. We're excited to be back in front of you, excited for another year ahead. The toolbox, Councilor, is not necessarily for outdoor dining, but we do have some funds that are set aside that we've used in the past, whether it was the downtown funding, different things like that we've been able to help with the outdoor dining. The toolbox specifically is used for storefront beautification. Mm-hmm. We have one that's structured very similar to the TIF program that you guys are very familiar with. As you know, not always a company triggers that assessment change, the value change that will allow them to apply for a TIF at the state level. So we've structured a program that's very similar for companies that we still want to attract but don't necessarily meet the guidelines for that state program. And then the last one that we have is called, it's a rental assistance program. I'm sorry, there's one other one, the amenities program.
Thank you, Director. I will open it up to any questions. Councilor Brown.
Thank you, Chairman Irish, and thank you for coming. Good to see you. I also have some questions about the toolbox, because when I first took office, it was one of the things when I came to learn more about MEDC, you would explain to me, and it really sounded like an exciting opportunity for small businesses in the city. So I was just wondering a couple of things about it. So for the toolbox, do you find that you have more existing businesses approaching you for it, or do you have new people who might want to open a business in town approach you for it?
I don't have the exact number, but it's pretty mixed. I would say it's about half and half. Mm-hmm. A lot of times we get businesses that are referred to us, sometimes even through counselors such as yourself, which is wonderful, but we're able to help Kennedy's or some of the existing folks that have been here for many, many years that are maybe looking for a new awning or something that they want to upgrade their space. But we also do use it as a tool to try and incentivize, as I was just saying, some of those smaller companies, maybe 25 to 50,000 square feet, still bringing with them 5, 10, 15, 20 jobs to the community, which we think is still a really good thing. We don't always have large blocks of space that are available for the big fish, and we want to continue to foster that small fish mentality. So we use it for both incoming and existing businesses.
Thank you so much. And then I just have one last question about the toolbox. Could you possibly provide a couple of examples of businesses that have taken advantage of the program and what they've actually used the funds for?
Absolutely. So to date, we've been able to give out over $417,000 to 20 local businesses. The very first one that we did was actually Rewalk Robotics. They're over on Donald Lynch Boulevard. You may be familiar with them, but they do the spinal cord, it's exoskeletons that they help people be able to walk again. Wind River Environmental was one. I won't go through the entire list of 20, but just some that you guys might know. Dancing Orchid Soap Works, that's the one that was down here on Main Street. That was not a new company to Marlborough, but she didn't have a physical presence that was accessible. She was over on Hosmer Street up on a second floor.
Doing some online business too,
Doing
right?
online business
Okay.
primarily. And, it was an old employee that had gone in to talk to her. I don't even remember for what, but she came back and said, we need her on Main Street. So it was actually one of our favorite stories. We kind of went in and talked to Patricia and said, hey, we think you'd do really well on Marlborough Main Street. And look how wonderful she's doing down there. So that was another really great one. I know I mentioned Kennedy's. Wellies is another one. We've been able to help Wellies actually with the new expansion that they're doing over across at the old Fish location. That's one of our newest applications that we approved. So we're really proud of that, really excited to be able to help them with their new adventure. And certainly that's something that we think is vital to downtown Marlborough to make sure that that location becomes something that's going to thrive.
Thank you so much, Meredith. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Councilor Brown.
Thank you.
Councilor Orm.
Thank you both for being here. Is the mayor planning to be here?
I'm not sure.
Okay, I thought he said he might be. Well, that was for the city council meeting, but that's fine. You don't have to answer for the mayor. Okay. You don't have to worry about that. Back to the toolbox. How do you get out to the community on the availability of it and maybe interested parties? And the other second part to the question, is it multilingual? Is it in other languages?
It is. It is. So we've done some pretty, I wouldn't say aggressive marketing, but we've done a lot of direct marketing to businesses that we think might benefit. We have advertised both in the local newspapers. We do different advertisements on our social media pages. And then we, in the last year, actually did a live video where Linda is speaking about the program. We have folks that have utilized the program that are actually giving testimonials, and that has been translated into 3 different languages.
It's in English and in Portuguese on our website.
Good.
We actually get a lot of interest in these programs. I actually have 3 in the pipeline right now. So it's word of mouth and just a lot of Meredith meets with companies. They know about it and they tell others about it.
Okay. So, well, thank you for that.
It does get around a lot.
Yeah, it's important because the more you can reach, the better. Especially, we want to take care of the small fish. They are the center of our community, and I see a lot of various companies in Marlborough businesses that are multilingual, so especially downtown, as you know. And so I'm just wondering, that's why I asked about that portion of it. Do you ever do you have a translator that can pay a visit to them, is maybe a question.
Do we have a translator?
A translator. Say if you wanted to go visit the downtown businesses and just let them know of your programs, do we have anyone within MEDC that could do that?
I actually speak Portuguese.
Linda speaks Portuguese. We do our best.
I do my
Linda
best.
does. Speak Portuguese.
And I do understand Spanish. I just don't speak it back very well. But we have met with Brazilian and Spanish companies.
We also, I'm sure you're all familiar, Jill Morin is also part of our team. She was an English second language, ESL teacher at Marlborough High School. So she's also a resource to us that is able to help out with some of those things.
That's an excellent capability to have that as well, since, as you see, our businesses are various from different cultures and so
Absolutely.
forth. Speaking about downtown and so forth and the various businesses, the Chamber of Commerce, which is downtown as well, what's your interactions with them? I ask you this usually every year to see how things are going between the 2 groups.
So I sit on the board of directors as an advisory member with the chamber. So at least interacting with them every month for the board meetings. We just recently did an event with the chamber over at Apex Entertainment. They did kind of a school to business expo, where it was a career expo. There was about 100 students that had come in from from surrounding communities that they all came in. They met with different industry partners. There was also a table of municipal folks. So the mayor had sent over a couple different department heads to talk about opportunities that are available for students that either may be looking for an alternative path to college, or they're looking to maybe just get in touch with some of the different companies that are in our community. The really neat thing about this Career Expo is they all had on tags where they had QR codes, and the companies could actually just take a picture of the student's QR code, get their information, and they were able to communicate directly, back and forth between the two, which I thought was really incredible. But it was a really, really great event for us to partner with them on.
Excellent. And you brought up the schools, so I'll go there next.
Sure.
Your interaction with the schools over the past year.
Over the past year, we've been able to...
as long as you
Sure,
want to go.
yeah. We have a great relationship with the schools. We've really tried over the last 2 or 3 years to kind of bolster that work-based learning programming. As you all are aware of the Patriot Ambulance program that was able to get up and running, trying to expand that into different industries, into different avenues for the students. There is one that's...
If you can stop, what are you doing? Because I have David behind me who was in Rotary with me. What are you doing with Patriot Ambulance?
Yeah, so, I'm sorry?
What are you doing with Patriot Ambulance? What type of program are you working with?
So the high school has a program with Patriot Ambulance, so we were
Okay.
able to connect Patriot Ambulance with the high school, where the students are actually taking time out of their school day, and they're going to Patriot Ambulance, and they're learning at Patriot Ambulance hands-on, and when they come out of high school, they're leaving high school with an EMT certification. So that it works out for Patriot because they have a built-in pipeline, but it also works out for the students because they're coming out of school with an actual certification that they can apply in their real life moving forward.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
No,
I
that's
figured
okay.
while we were right there.
I'm excited to talk about it.
And the other part was you were going to continue with something
Sure.
else.
So I was going to say the next one that we kind of have in the pipeline that is on track to open up this next fall is with a company called Technium. You can hear Dr. Riley speak very long about it at the school committee meeting a couple weeks ago, but it's an IT program, much of which goes right over my head, but they're going to be doing some really cool things with the students to kind of teach them about IT and the things that they do in the cloud, but really trying to, again, build that pipeline for the local company, but also give our students kind of a unique opportunity that you don't find in every community.
And are we giving the schools funding to help with these programs? Is that our interaction with
We're not
MEDC?
giving funding, we are creating the connection. So when we're out talking to the companies, we're asking them, are you interested in partnering with our schools? Would you be interested in this type of a program? And if they bite at the apple, we are facilitating that conversation.
Excellent. I have a couple other questions related to your budget. And you're
Sure.
very transparent, I appreciate it. But when I was looking at it, I was looking at the contracted services. So I see on, I don't know if it has a page, but there was an outline of contracted services at $35,800. But then if I go 2 pages over, I read on the whole budget outline, under contracted services, it shows $173,000. So what's the difference with those two? Maybe they're two different, do those 2 different lines represent 2 different things? I'm looking at the profit loss, this here. It's,
Oh, that's,
and it has $173,000 for plus a
is
minus.
the last page?
Is it, yeah, it is the
Okay,
last page,
so that's
yes.
what we have spent, this fiscal year.
This,
And that
but-
includes everything, special projects, operating, so it's all lumped in one sum.
So that line item really is more than just contracted services, the one that shows $173,000? Because 2
Correct.
pages
That-
over,
That includes like our shuttle bus payments, to the
which you have
to
up
the
above
vendor,
there, yeah.
which falls under special projects, so all the total lump sums are in the P&L.
Okay, so you brought it up, and I was going to ask you a question on the Marlborough shuttle bus. You show on the top of that same page, $250,000.
Correct.
That's what we're putting out for that bus. That's the amount of money
Received a grant for that.
Per year.
per year. But we get that money back in a grant.
We
It's
did.
fully paid for by a grant.
It's fully paid for by the state grant that we received.
So that's what I thought, because I see the difference down below transportation fund. I just want to make sure when I was reading it. So where does that stand? Ridership?
It's actually, believe it or not, better than it was pre-COVID. So as you may recall, we launched it right before COVID hit. We actually kind of transitioned during those months and had the senior center using the bus primarily. We actually got another grant to be able to continue using it during that time period. And since, you know, the last year and a half or so, we've been running it. It's back up to its pre-COVID levels. What it does is it goes from two different, actually we've got 3 stops now. We've actually added a downtown stop. So it's making 3 stops in Marlborough, going over to the Southborough train station, dropping off residents that want to take the train either into Worcester or to Boston, and then picking up people that are coming in from Worcester and Boston trying to get to their job here in Marlborough. So,
and just for the public's knowledge, where are those 3 stops?
There's one, we call it Marlborough Hills, which is sometimes a little confusing, but that's where Quest, Cytiva, former GE, and the Hilton Garden Inn, it's right behind Hilton Garden Inn, picks up at the Apex Center, and then down here, downtown Marlborough at the bus stop.
And are you foreseeing any need for expansion with it? Or
we
more
would love
stops?
for it to expand. I mean, right now, it's going pretty well.
Right now, it's pretty steady.
Pretty steady ridership. But if there was a need to expand it, we would be happy to go down to Boston and see if we get some additional funding to expand the shuttle.
So if I was in downtown Marlborough and I wanted to go to the train station in Southborough, would that be free transportation?
Correct.
If that's free, hopefully that hits the general public that's listening in tonight.
Which is a big deal, Counselor. I'm glad you brought that up, because parking at the train station in Southborough, too, can be very costly.
Very limited down there. Even Ashland used to fill up, but now after COVID, it's not filling up like it used to. So the contracted services shown on this does not include other contracted services on
No,
this.
that's just
That's why I
ours.
was confused. I said 35, but then the other line says 173. So it threw me off a little bit. Now you had a question on the shuttle bus, which you answered, so thank you for your answers.
Absolutely.
And, oh, one other, I'm sorry, Counsel. I asked if the mayor was here, because I was going to ask him this question. In his letter, he notes that we have maintained the lowest commercial vacancy rate in the area. I had questions on
I think that may have been a typo. I think it meant to be
It's
residential.
residential.
residential. So what is our vacancy rate at this point? It's nice to compare year to year. How are we doing from one year to the next on commercial vacancy?
So the overall commercial vacancy rate is about 12%.
Well, okay.
Which we work pretty closely with the assessor's office to make sure that we're tracking future move-ins, things of that nature, but we've been able to keep a pretty steady vacancy rate. And I'm sure you've noticed as you drive around town, but there's new buildings that are going up, which is a really good sign for the market, good sign for Marlborough in terms of folks that are interested.
Yeah, I was on Forest Street today, and I just noticed some police signs, so I'm saying, I wonder what that actual rate is. So it's 12%, and is that about where we've been the past couple of years? So it's remaining steady. And then he says, in the area. Do you know what he meant by, I'm sorry to ask you, but you might know. He said in the letter that in the area. What does he mean by the area? Does he mean Hudson Marlborough, or does he mean Metro West? Do you know
So the lowest residential commercial tax rate in the Metro West area, all of the surrounding communities, we are lower than all of the surrounding communities.
Oh, that clarifies it, because when he said commercial vacancy, it threw me off for a loop. Okay, what area, what's that rate, which you just answered, 12%, and then what's the area? But how do we compare to other areas on the vacancy rate?
Well, I just want to be clear, when he's talking about the residential tax rate.
Yeah, I know you're saying that should have been the way it wasn't worded that way, but it brought out questions to me. How are we comparing to other, like Westboro and other cities and towns with the vacancy rate, commercial vacancy rate?
I don't have Westborough's vacancy rate off the top of my head, but, you know, we're doing very well.
Yeah. Okay.
You know, I mean, certainly Metro West is doing very well. You know, a lot of folks are coming from the Boston, you know, Cambridge area. They have a negative vacancy rate. They don't have space for folks, so a lot of people are coming this way.
It's good to know.
But, you know, certainly Marlborough's the best out of all the Metro West communities.
That's fine. Thank you. Thank you for clarifying the mayor's letter as well. Thank you.
I don't have, it's not my letter.
I'm not holding you to it.
Sure.
I'm just teasing a little
Sure.
bit. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, because one thing too, I think not too long ago I had read that Westboro was working on trying to attract some businesses in with some tips, which I think our rates were a little bit better than what they were offering. But anyhow, Councilor Perlman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and it's great to see you both. I feel like we want to just have you in all the time because it's just nice to hear updates, you know, firsthand.
We'd be happy to come anytime.
Yes, well, we appreciate, I know we get the meeting minutes and a lot of the, you know, upcoming agendas and, you know, who's participating in the Toolbox program, which I know has been already talked about. I will also put the shout out that I did try the shuttle service when I was working out in Boston and wanted to see it firsthand. And had a really positive experience. And I think definitely the addition with the downtown stop is really important because it really is a trek. You don't even realize how far it is to get to the other side of, past the 495 line kind of in Marlborough. So I'm glad to see that that's become a permanent stop, because I think when I was taking it, people were saying it was, a little trial error, which is good. Do you have
always in need of drivers too? So
yes,
in order to expand the service, there's one driver that we're using. I'm sure you got to know.
Yes,
Dave.
he's wonderful.
It's amazing.
A good chatter, a lot of good conversation about what's going on. Is that something that I think is just a problem across the board, obviously with staffing? So I'm sure it's not just unique to the shuttle service, but. Is that something that's like advertised and trying to get more folks?
Yep, and so we do contract, with A&A Metro. That's who, services and runs the shuttle. So Dave technically works for A&A Metro, but we certainly, have it on our jobs page on our website, and we're making a plug right now, hoping that folks are listening, might be looking for that kind of a job.
A&A is also advertising
They
as well.
advertise it,
Okay.
correct.
No, that's great. I know I was driving the other day and there was I think for the schools, a bus, notice on one of those signs that's digital, saying how much you can really make when you drive a lot of these vehicles. And so it's good to know those jobs are out there.
Well, we actually recently branded the bus where it now has the city seal on it.
Oh, very
the
nice.
MEDC, logo, and there's a QR code on it. So if it's driving around and you're looking for more information, at a stoplight, you can take a picture of the QR
That's
code.
amazing. Yeah, no. And for folks to know, it's in the morning for people going to work and then, during the kind of coming home hours, which is really great.
Well, that's an important point too, that during the day it is still being used by the senior
Right,
center.
the seniors, yeah, that's, I think, a really great asset. And I
Yes.
look forward to it continuing and growing and, please advocate for more funding for it. Happy to support there because I do think that kind of last mile, as they're calling it, really is one of the issues that we want to address. And I thought it was really helpful, particularly since parking has gone up at the commuter rail, which is really great. I wanted to kind of point back to the schools conversation. I know you all have done a lot of work to really promote the schools. I feel like there's so many great programs, and a lot of people, even residents, don't always realize what an asset, particularly at Marlborough High School. And so I was wondering if you could speak about how that's been continuing in the past year and where you see that next phase for Marlborough High School, particularly because I know a lot of students there. Our families are really involved in Whitcomb, and then they might not go to Marlborough High School. And I, as a graduate myself and knowing how many others are, it really has so many wonderful programs that I even would have benefited from when I was a student. So I was wondering where that is currently.
Yeah, I mean, we try to, at least once or twice a year have, we just had Dr. Riley on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, and, he was talking about some of the different programs. He was talking about the Big Brothers, Big Sisters, the Maisie program, which was really great. But a lot of our conversations are centered around trying to connect the business community to the schools and to the students. I've been saying for years, I think people drive by the buildings in our community and don't necessarily know all the opportunities that are within them. There's a lot of job opportunities available right here in our backyard for the students that are coming out of the schools, but it's just as important for us to be talking to the business community about what type of pipeline do they need. You can come out of school and you can be looking for a job, but if you're going to school, going to college or, whatever it is for something that isn't going to be applicable, kind of almost not what's the point, but kind of what's the point. So if you're talking to a company that's got job openings that you're interested in, they can kind of guide you in what type of schooling you should be looking into. Over the last year, we were also able to work with Quest Diagnostics that came in and they gave a sizable donation to the Marlborough Public Schools to help with the AP and the SAT prep courses, which was really phenomenal. So we were happy to make that connection as well.
Okay, no, that's great to hear. Yeah, it's something I'm always conscious of, how we're continuing to grow that relationship and appreciate all the work that's being done through your office to facilitate that. I'm also curious, I know we've been talking kind of about the vacancy rates and the success of getting a lot of businesses here. I'm just kind of curious of a status update coming out of the pandemic and, the kind of concerns that people weren't going back into offices. And I know when the mayor's come down before, when businesses have come here, there's been, stricter guidelines that we want people in office, particularly when the TIF conversation has come up. I'm just curious how that has sort of shaped the marketing to businesses when the vacancy rates are being considered and when businesses come here, are people really back to work fully, or is it sort of that 3-day model? What have you been seeing on the ground?
I think it's a mixed bag. I do think it's coming back though, where a lot of the employers want people in the office. We did see for a while, we were really concerned about some of the bigger players in town, for example, a TJX, where, not everybody needs to be in the office.
Right.
You look at a Quest Diagnostics and they need to be in the building in order to do what they do. But we've, luckily, as time has kind of gone on and the leases have continued, they need folks to come into the office for the camaraderie and to be with each other. And, even if that wasn't the case, and even if you have a 3-day work week, you still need a big enough building that if everybody was to come in for one meeting or for some sort of a, company-wide event or something like that, you need the space to house them. Right. So we're not as concerned about the vacancy rate skyrocketing as we were maybe 3 years ago.
Okay, no, that's really great to hear. And then particularly to the budget packet, I did have a question kind of comparing the letter as well around kind of the changes in staffing levels, and then seeing, I think, like the administrative position is vacant compared to what you've shown here. Just kind of wondering how staffing has looked so far for you all, and if that's something you're looking to fill in the future. I'm sure it's also posted because,
Sure.
Job market in general has been hard to, fill these positions, but wondering if that's something looking forward. And from the letter, was that just a position that no longer is filled and now there's that money available, and that's why there's some sort of difference between what was requested and what you all already have for kind of holdover money from the past cycle?
So we intended to hire somebody in the last year. That didn't work out. So we had somebody on for, I would say, maybe 3 or 4 months into last fiscal year. And we would love to fill that role. We've got a phenomenal team over there. We're very busy, so we would love to have another set of hands in the office. We've been kind of going back and forth about, what does that role look like? Is it a part-time position? Is it a full-time position? Really trying to wrap our brains around that. And we're comfortable with what we've put in today. But as you know, over the years, the staffing, it changes depending on who's in the office and the different skill sets. But that's why you're seeing that delta from last year. Okay,
that's helpful. And I know we won't have to belabor this, but I know in the past there's been conversations about the rent being a huge piece of the budget as well. And obviously it's really great to have you all in the downtown area. Is that something, what is sort of the status on that lease, and maybe what year you all are in?
Yeah, so we have a lease signed until 2025. We would love to stay in the downtown area. As you guys are well aware, there's not a lot of vacancies in the downtown. But certainly open to that conversation moving forward if you think there's opportunity for us.
Yeah, no, I definitely think it's an asset. We've constantly talking about revitalizing downtown. We really want people to be in there, and obviously having you all as the hallmark interacting with businesses and the chamber being downtown, I think it is a really crucial thing, and really shows our commitment to the area. But I just remember, I think in previous conversations, just that it is a large chunk, and obviously from the budget too, personnel and things like where your office is located are just generally big parts of a budget, and that's just something to take into account moving forward. But I was just wondering where that had stood currently. And the last question I have is just, I know, and I think about it a lot with our schools because they give us like this 5-year or the projection of a kind of a budget. What are some of the areas that you're seeing MEDC growing into in the future, or thinking about the budget? I'm sure, things will increase over time, but are there certain types of businesses we're specifically trying to attract? Is there, from the meeting minutes I've seen a lot, but just kind of thinking right now, where is like the target? I know we're a biotech hub and, trying to fill the vacancies, get more small businesses and the toolbox program, but is there something new that you all are like, we want to do this next, and, how we all can support that?
I mean, I would almost look to you guys to help us decide what that vision should look like. We're here to serve for the city. So I would love to have a collaborative conversation about what you think we should be doing moving forward. For now, I think we're going to continue to focus on trying to attract the businesses to fill some of the vacancies that are still out in the community. We do still have a couple of large blocks of space that we'd love to continue working at. And then continuing with the small business outreach. We do also have a hospitality program that we support. We do about 80% business, 20% hospitality. So we'll continue on that path as well. But if there's, unique ideas or a direction you think we should be going in, we'd love to hear from you guys on that.
Yeah, no, I would love that. I know we get invited to, the annual meeting and some other things, but aren't necessarily in every committee meeting or the monthly meeting. So, I open myself up to being willing to come to those. So please send invitations, and just really nice to be able to be kind of on the ground with you all as these things are moving forward, and really appreciate all the work that you all are doing.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Doucette.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of questions, and thank you, folks, for all the work that you do. You're a great asset for the city. Really do respect that. So a couple of questions. First, as far as the bus stops goes, you basically handle the west part of the town, but I'd like to see some sort of stop on the east part of town. I'm not sure if they're still doing it, but at least a couple of years ago, Boston Scientific was doing parking at the Home Depot parking lot for bus service to go into Boston. There's not only the Home Depot, there's the Staples, there's the mall where Colonial Liquors is.
Yeah.
There's lots of parking spaces where there'd be available parking throughout the day, where just pick a place to say, we're gonna pick up a bus stop there.
Sure.
On the east side, I think you'd really get some traction very quickly with that, because as what Sam was saying,
Sure.
going to the other side of town is a pain,
Yeah.
you know, but closer is better, you know, and not only that, you start getting potential leads from Sudbury and stuff, because they're looking at that too.
Sure.
The other questions, as far as, you said you were doing something like a TIF, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, is that a multi-year program with the TIF that you do? Like, what's the duration of these
Yeah, so
agreements
those,
that you do?
we try to keep them at 2 years, so
Okay.
they're very small, but, you know, we'll look at the real estate, it's very again, just structured
Mm-hmm.
very similarly to the TIF, where we're looking at the property taxes that are paid,
Yep.
and that's how we're coming up with the number or the
Okay.
grant value of what
Yeah.
we'd be able to grant.
Okay, yeah, no, I was just wondering, you know, what's the duration, because
Yep.
ours is 10 years, so.
Right, no,
I'm- back in my head, I'm like, what?
No, Linda's the one that is looking at all those, we're not doing 10 years,
Yeah, yeah,
we're
yeah,
like
yeah,
2.
no, that's, so I was trying to figure out how it's saying the same and how it's
And
different.
meeting the
that's all.
job numbers that, you know, that were
Yeah.
agreed upon. so-
Right, okay, that's
So it's
fine.
the same type of reporting that you'd see at the,
Yep.
you know, we're tracking the TIFs, but we're also tracking the grants to ensure that the money that we are granting to the companies, that they're holding up their end of the bargain as well.
Sure, okay, good. The other is, as far as just, another general question about the toolbox, you know, it's a pool of money that you guys use for a variety of purposes. Is that something that gets refreshed every year, or is it just something like you have this pool of money and then every year you put more into it? So there's, you know, the money doesn't go away at the end of the fiscal year, or does it?
Well, so our goal is to have it committed to companies by the
I
end of the
understand
year.
that's your goal.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that goal.
Yeah.
Okay, sometimes the goal is not achieved. So does the
always-
money still there for next year, or does it go away?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Is,
So the balance.
yes, the
there-
balance.
The balance there now is actually very low. So in order for us to continue, we need to have it replenished.
Right, and I understand the
Based on the
replenishment.
need, so.
Right, right, but, so your intent is to burn down to as little as possible,
Correct.
okay? If there's any money left, does it stay in the account?
Yes.
Okay, that's where I was
Yes,
going.
yes.
Sometimes there's hooks in money that say, you have to pay it, you gotta spend it by this date.
Oh, no.
Okay,
If
so
the
that's
money's
where I
there,
was.
it would stay in the account.
Right,
Correct.
that's where I was going with it, so I
Correct.
just wanted clarification with
Yep.
that.
Yes.
So, okay, thank you, I appreciate that.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, and I appreciate the opportunities to brainstorm, by the way.
Absolutely. Anytime, anytime.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you,
you.
Councilor Doucette. Any further questions?
I really don't have any questions, more comments. You know, I sit here and looking back over history when it was 2010 and MEDC, you know, it's amazing that we know where we're at because this is a finance meeting. And there's very few financial questions, which is good. That means that we have a lot of confidence in you guys. But it's just amazing the range of things that you do. By the way, I missed that joint venture with the chamber, but I hear it was a home run.
It was incredible.
Yeah,
It was run very well.
yeah, I don't know how the hell I missed it, but I missed it.
I don't know either.
But a couple of comments I'd like to bring up. I flip that TV an awful lot, and I never see the beginning of the Phantom Gourmet, you know, but they love to talk about Marlborough. Tell us a little bit about that, how that works.
So that's not an accident, Counselor.
Well, I know that.
So we partner with Phantom Gourmet. We have an exclusive partnership with Phantom Gourmet.
I figured that.
We do, and so they're not able to, advertise with any other community in New England other than Marlborough. And we've been doing that for the past, I want to say, 4 or 5 years. It's been a really phenomenal partnership. We've made really good connections with other restaurateurs throughout New England that are interested in Marlborough. So when something like fish, if Wemmy across the street isn't interested, we're able to go to our partners at Phantom Gourmet and say, hey, who do you have available that might be interested in Marlborough? And they're doing advertising for all of our restaurants through MEDC, through the city of Marlborough. And anybody that wants to do additional advertising with Phantom Gourmet gets a discount based on our partnership. We also have a commercial that's running with them, you know, every weekend, and then it runs.
I see it.
Yeah,
it's a good one.
good. It's good.
Yeah.
But the beauty of the Phantom Gourmet is it goes beyond just the restaurants. You know, so kind of the thought process behind it was we're selling Marlborough to a completely different audience. You don't know who's watching Phantom Gourmet on a Saturday or a Sunday morning. You know, the CEO of XYZ company could be watching, and all of a sudden they're thinking, oh, Marlborough, maybe I should be thinking about that. So we're really trying to reach a completely different audience with that marketing, and it's unique and it works.
It's really impressive, really, I enjoy it. I could go on, but that's about all. I had a couple other ones, but I didn't write them down, but I'll get you next time. By the way, I'm gonna give them a little plug too. I have more leisure time than a lot of you people, but I visit them once a week or every other week, and that's why I know so much. Because I go in and we sit down, and I try to stay only 15 or 20 minutes, sometimes a little longer than that.
15 or 20 minutes.
But I leave there on a real high, because there are so many neat things, you know, going on. It's amazing. And I brag about you guys all the time.
Thank you. Thank you, Counselor.
Mr. Finance Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. It's always good to hear all those great words of wisdom there. Seeing no further questions, I will entertain a motion. And the motion would be to include for the operating budget of $648,290, as well as $100,000 for the Economic Development Toolbox. So that would be a total of $748,290.
Motion to approve.
I will second that. Motion has been made and seconded to approve order number 23-100-8850, transfer request totaling $748,290 from Economic Development to MEDC funding for the FY 2024 operating budget.
Motion, I just want to make sure the general public knows this money is coming from the hotel tax.
That is
and there was
correct.
legislation that passed back in 2010. But that's so the general taxpayer knows this is a hefty amount of money, almost $750,000, that is coming from a tax that's collected at the hotels, city tax.
The room tax.
And I think that's important for people to know as well.
Good point,
Thank you.
Counsel. Good point, Counsel. No further discussion. All in favor? Motion carries 4-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so next on the agenda is order number 23-100-8850, communication from Mayor Vigent, together with a transfer request in the amount of $393,854.64 from PEG funds and Government Access Channel to Marlborough Cable Trust to fund the WMCT-TV operations and capital request for FY 2024. And I will begin by reading the letter submitted by the Mayor, Honorable President Ossing, and councilors, and close for your review and acceptance are two transfer requests in the amount of $393,854.64 for operational costs and WMCT-TV's capital items from Marlborough Public Educational Government Access Channels, which is the PEG Fund. You may recall that you approved a $100,000 transfer earlier this year, and that funding combined with $133,120 remaining funds and the enclosed transfer will cover the full $526,974.64 for FY 2024 operating budget and capital request. Also enclosed is the WMCT-TV operating budget and capital items for review. WMCT-TV plans to replace outdated broken equipment and purchased additional equipment for streaming services from remote locations as outlined in the enclosed worksheet. Executive Director Ryan Mylar has done an exceptional job with enhancing the studio and recommends stopping by if you haven't seen it. Due to his successful community outreach, he's able to bring new programming to the studio. Welcome, Director.
It's great to be here.
Thank you very much. If you would like to inform the council and residents on how things are going at WMCT-TV, please.
Yeah, I was here a few months ago, as you remember, when we requested that early $100,000 transfer. Just to clarify that, we were trying to avoid an audit, and maybe we can try to do that again this year, our coming fiscal year. So you might see me again later on trying to balance that out if that's possible. We are doing so good. The studio is really bustling, and the amount of foot traffic that we have coming in and out every day is just astonishing. A lot of that is thanks to having so many new community producers, which are local organizations. The Marlborough Regional Chamber of Commerce does a monthly show, and they're constantly bringing in new guests into the studio featuring local businesses all the time. It's fantastic. We're averaging about 30 pieces of video content a month. So just one small piece of that is these city council meetings and subcommittee meetings and school committee. The rest of that is we do a monthly show with Mayor Vigent, Corner Office. We do a monthly show with Superintendent of the Schools, Mary Murphy, which is a roundtable show. These are great shows that are just reaching the community and sharing things that are happening behind the scenes, delivering more transparency. Plus we have coverage of high school athletics during the school year, and then we switch during the summer to covering Shamrock's football games, which always get a great response. We always do the Marlborough Labor Day Parade, and it doesn't get a ton of views right away because people are there at the parade, which is what we want, but this year's parade has over 2,000 views, which is incredible, especially for all those sponsors that are participating in the parade. We are leveraging ourselves as a media platform. The list goes on. We also, this is very exciting, we're gonna have another summer program, 1-week program for middle school students. So you heard it here first. I'm not gonna give any dates, but if you're interested, if your child is interested in doing stop motion animation, follow us on social media, and this program will be completely paid for. It will be completely free to Marlborough residents, so we're really excited to be able to offer that as well. And then, of course, I got to give a shout out to my amazing team. And right now we have 2 people in the back room playing tag team. We have Matt Bisaccio and Deglin Garside who are managing the meeting tonight. So,
and it's always a pleasure to speak with them, absolutely.
Yeah, so we're doing well.
Thank you. All right, thank you so much, sir. I will open it up to the committee and council if they have any questions. Councilor Brown.
Thank you, Chairman Irish. Thank you for coming, and I just want to thank you for everything that you've done at the studio since you've come on board. I have noticed that there's such, as you spoke about, there's a much wider variety of local programming than I've ever been used to. I feel like local government and sports was pretty much all that I was used to previously seeing for a long time, so I really appreciate the variety.
And we're getting bilingual shows now too. We have someone who does a show on how to buy your first home and entering the real estate market. He does it both in Spanish and English, back and forth. We have a Portuguese language religious show as well, so we're really starting to try to open up those gates. Of course, it's difficult for me to edit those shows, so it requires a lot of back and forth, but it's really exciting.
Absolutely. No, that's great to hear. Thank you for sharing that. And so I've also been hearing more in the community. So when I go to different events or really anywhere, I'd never really heard anybody talking about the local cable station ever. But now I'm starting to hear more about it. My son attends a local music school. They were talking about potentially collaborating and doing almost like a
Rock Institute. We're doing a little sort of documentary behind the scenes with them. Yeah.
Yes. So I thought that was really cool. And the owner of the Rock Institute, you probably know, he was on a VH1 reality show, so he can kind of tie it all in together a little bit. But I was wondering about the remote locations that were mentioned in the mayor's letter. I'd kind of looked through the information and I just didn't see the remote locations specified. And so I know there is a camera downtown where the studio is. What are the other remote locations that may have?
So anytime we are going to go live for sports, for example, so any of the different stadiums, whether it's at the middle school, the high school, we operate using, it's semi-pro technology is the way I'm going to put it, because it's the most accessible. If you look at our capital budget, which is almost 25K, if you were to go into Boston and look at any show at WGBH, a single studio camera is going to cost you $25,000 without a lens on it. So we are operating, we are really milking it for what we can, approaching things from a more consumer technology than high-end technology. So it mostly goes to a new MacBook, which is what we use for live streaming sporting events, when we're capturing concerts at the middle school, where the high school has their concerts as well, attempting to go live from the start of the Labor Day parade, so we don't have to wait for them to get all the way down to us, things like that.
Okay. And so would this be also, I was told that if I volunteered at the snack shack at the Little League field, I would be able to watch my son because they have cameras remote. Is that what they're talking about?
I'm not
So
clued into
that
one.
might not be the affiliate. So I was just kind of trying to figure out where, but that it's not that important. I just had one other thing I was going to mention, and that was that I really appreciated the detailed report that you had on your capital budget report. I feel like it leaves me with few financial questions to ask because you did provide so many details, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilor Brown. And Councilor Perlman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you so much, Ryan. You and your team are definitely such a breath of fresh air every time you are doing an event or helping out at these meetings. It really makes it such a seamless process, and I'm so thrilled to hear how many local residents and community organizations are taking advantage of the programming, because it was always sort of like a hidden gem, like, hey, we're here, but people might not have been utilizing it. And to see that, all of these new innovative shows are coming together and there's more of like a local outreach and reception from the community is really positive. I did want to kind of, I guess, on the capital budget, I was curious, when we do replace some of this equipment, which I know has been aging, and the semi-pro, which I completely understand, how long does it typically last for? And like, what is the cycle of having to replace things? Because I imagine, it's used so frequently, right? Or if you have multiple to make it last.
How often do you replace your cell phone? 4 years? Let's average it about that, So as we approach technology, even the technology in this room is starting to put together a 5-year capital plan to replace the robotic cameras, the microphones in this room. Of course, it's taken care of very well. That could be $85,000 to do a replace of all this equipment, especially based on what the new needs will be and how and this is an equipment that we're going to want to invest in the future for. The stuff in the studio, I don't invest as much in, but something that we want to last for a very long time, which would be especially the equipment here and the equipment where school committee takes place. When it comes time to replace that, we're going to want to get the best equipment at the time to hopefully avoid constant replacement down the line, just like this has served the city for many years.
Okay, now that's helpful. I know technology, it's sort of like once you get it, it's outdated. It's like a car, right? You're always sort of behind the wheel, but it's nice to know that we're able to support the updates and the upgrades so that you can even do more programming as well. And I was curious to speak a little bit more about your staffing. How is that going, in terms of what you have, what's in the budget? Is that working well for you all? Is there, intention to want to increase staffing in the future, or how many hours folks are doing?
I, of course, would love to increase staffing, and the more staff we can provide, the more resources we can provide. I imagine down the road at some point having a full-time youth director, someone to do after-school and weekend programs geared towards middle school and high school students. That's something that I've had at other studios that I've worked at in the past, and I think that would be a really cool and exciting opportunity for young people in the city. But these are all that's just a hypothetical. Historically, what I've been told is the studio has been thought of as sort of a launching place and in between for maybe someone to explore video production right out of college and then move on to something else. And as a result of that, at what some of the salaries are placed at, we get frequent turnaround. And as anyone in HR field would know, that turnaround equals a lot of time spent on training and retraining and training again. And in the brief time that I've been here, I've had to train at least 4 individuals over a year and a half.
Well, I appreciate you raising that because I feel like it has come up in other budget meetings, even I think before you got here, about what we're compensating individuals at and the balance of wanting it to be sort of entry level and also having the institutional knowledge that comes along with it. So that's just something I think we as a council should keep an eye on to make sure that people get the expertise and they can utilize it here and don't have to say, oh, this is a short-term gig and now I'm moving forward, because the relationships they build with community members, their knowledge of the equipment, right? Their just rapport in the community is directly influenced. So I'm glad to see that that's something that down the line we should continue to work for, and obviously with the HR director to keep that in mind as well. But I'm just very thrilled with the work that you're doing. I'm so appreciative. Every time I see a new show going on, I'm just very excited and want to watch, and I think that's the positive energy that you really have brought to the table, and the whole team is fabulous. So you should feel very proud of everything that's going on at WMCT-TV.
Thank you.
Thank you, Council Orm. Council Orm.
Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. You haven't been here too long, but you seem to have done a lot in your time here, so I appreciate that. A couple questions. Obviously, I think we may have chatted at a previous meeting about this too, is the PEG funds, the Public Education Government Access Channel funds that pay for this, so I don't have to interrupt a motion on your motion when it comes up. But again, for the taxpayers that may be listening now or watching a replay, because the Bruins are on right now. I'm sure one of our councils is very interested in that, but it comes from Comcast and Verizon. And I notice it's around $650, $649 and change, and you're asking for $393. So there'll be a give or take about $250,000 left. The concern, the reason I bring it up is as we see subscribers leaving Verizon and Comcast, and it's just the way of the world with all the streaming that goes on. Have you heard anything from your folks in your industry about where that is and where we're going with it?
I have colleagues that jumped ship on community television years ago. They saw the trend in people cutting the cord, which cutting the cord means getting rid of your cable provider to opt for all those over-the-top streaming devices, Netflix, YouTube TV. I've got 5 of them myself. They're fantastic. But as you said, WMCT-TV is the beneficiary between the contract between the city of Marlborough and those cable providers. And there's that little tax on the bill that goes into the PEG fund, and we appropriate from it every year. I do trust that the council is aware of the rules around the foundation of why that PEG fund was formed and what that money is to be spent on, as well as our individual contracts with Comcast and Verizon. It's all integral to understand how all of this works together. Historically, we're in a pretty good place because we have, in the past years that I can see, we have operated at a budget that is far less than what annually comes in that PEG revenue fund. Whereas other studios I worked at, we needed every single check. We were meeting with our select board every month to get that check signed over to operate. So we are in a much healthier position here in Marlborough, where I'm not looking for another job yet, and neither is my staff. We are confident that we have the support of the city and of the council, that if things should go south quickly, that hopefully we could garner some sort of support to exist, especially noting that WMCT-TV has existed since the early 80s when it was Charter Cable, I believe was the first cable contract with the city.
Yeah, and we don't want you going south either, so don't think about it that way. I was just wondering if your colleagues have seen the trend and
Absolutely.
Are concerned about it, and are there any interest from your colleagues to let us legislators know to push the state legislators, federal legislators on making sure we have government access channels and public access, those PEG funds? Might it be through another mechanism, not just cable TV?
There is legislation that's being passed around again. Our state rep Danielle Gregoire is advocating for a new bill which is in support of community television. I don't have the name of it right in front of me, but it's essentially a tax on those streaming services, which would put a tax. You can't tax the internet, that is federal law, but you can tax potentially Netflix and and Hulu and Roku and all those other means of getting this video content. This legislation has passed in a few other states, and the way this bill is currently written, it would be divided amongst the state, and not the state would receive a portion, and so would the community television studios, and each individual city or community would receive. So the city of Marlborough would be a benefit of this bill as well.
And I would support that. That's good news, and I hope it does pass. I would support it if I could, but I'm not a state legislator. I'll let Danielle know my interest, but as you said, it's a small fee. When you look at these streamers, and I'm streaming right now myself, they're up to $90. So a small fee to that is not going to bother me in any way to make sure we have public access. Hopefully the streamer will carry your channel, because now I have to go to the internet. And to that, I had one other question. Because of that, I'm one of those people that I miss a lot of the programming. And if I don't know if you have the availability to go to a newspaper like Community News or someone like that and just give a little breakdown of your program scheduled for the following week, if they would do that. But that would be nice, because I read that newspaper, the one and only lately. But, you know, it's just, I forget, you know, to go check Facebook. I've seen you on Facebook, but then I haven't seen it lately. I don't know if that's something, and maybe I did.
The algorithm. Blame the algorithm.
So it's in, but is it in Facebook?
We post everything on Facebook. We post multiple times a day.
I haven't seen it lately, so I'm going to have to find out why that part got lost on my Facebook.
Best place to go is go right to our website, WMCT-TV.com, and all of our content is also uploaded to YouTube. So you can easily throw that content on demand anytime you want. You don't have to wait for it to be live. You can put that right up onto your television set. Same with our streaming, our live games, our live concerts and things like that. If you have a smart TV and if you have a phone and you have the YouTube app on your TV, you can easily share that content right to the screen in high definition.
I always go to my phone, but I do have YouTube on my TV, so I will be doing that tonight, because it's much easier just to go to that app than to go to the phone. But that's good. And again, I always find that having a little schedule, maybe in a hard copy type paper, like a newspaper, it might be beneficial if they will allow you to do it, you know, hopefully for free. But I think you're doing a good job, and I have gone to YouTube to see some of, not that I like to watch myself, but to see what the discussion was. And again, thank you for what you do and your staff, and keep up the good work. I think you're asking for a reasonable number. I think next year, as discussed, we may see some increase in capital, and I understand after what you just noted. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Orm. No further discussion. I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
I will second that. Motion has been made and seconded to approve order number 23-100-8851, communication from Your Vision to transfer. Communication together with a transfer request in the amount of $393,854.64 from PEG funds, Public Educational and Government Access Channels, to Marlborough Cable Trust to fund the WMCT-TV operations and capital budget for FY 2024.
And on the motion, I just want to note that $100,000 already has been provided to the budget, because they operate April 1st till March 31st. So, so the total really would be $493 or $39. I have it right here if you don't have it. With the 100, it would be.
The total is $526,974
Okay.
and
Without
64
the,
cents.
correct.
Just for the general knowledge of it. It's not an inexpensive ordeal, but again, being paid for by access funds through the PEG funds.
That's right.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Good point, Councilor Orm. All in favor? Carries 4-0. I will entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
We are adjourned at 7:58 p.m.